It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, January 7th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that can't believe we are at the halfway mark of the season, Russ.
I know. Different team, different year, though.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. You can keep the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. To keep up with our episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, so of course we will get into the week that was for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. Very interesting goings on there. But of course, we do have to follow up on the Flyers versus Leafs game from the weekend that we are now repeating tonight for round 2 of our season series with Toronto. The league did, in fact, fine Max Domi the max 5K for that elbow to Garnet Hathaway here. And, you know, it is what it is. I think that was the most you would expect, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, we've seen worse, whatever.
Yeah. And obviously facing them again so quickly, I think, you know, you talked about in our recap of the game that it was going to be a little bit more physical, a little bit more of a grind this game. And I think, you know, the Flyers just have to continue what they were doing defensively and then put the puck in the net more.
Or they'll play Nick Delorier and, you know,
he hasn't played in forever. Like,
they might just play him now. I know. They might just play him now. Just saying.
Yeah. We'll see. We also have not seen Eric Johnson in forever. So we'll see what happens there. But I think that, you know, again, this game is winnable. Absolutely. Given how we saw them play against the Leafs the first time.
I don't know if it's as winnable. I think the first time you play them, you've got that element of surprise and such.
Fair.
I think it's a little less. It's certainly they played them close, so I can't say it's not winnable. But I think they're going to have a little bit of a different game plan. And Berube's pissed, so I don't know what he's going to do.
That is also true, and we know what that's like when Craig Berube gets angry. So
yes.
It is certainly a thing. It is game 41 tonight, and I can't believe we're at the halfway point of the season. Time flies when you're having a moderate season, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of things, though, that go on in a season that still make it interesting, and it's a fun sport, and I'm always going to enjoy it.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. It is fascinating to look at the halfway point, you know, where we were after game 40 last season versus this season. And it's a very different circumstance for the Flyers. You know, last year at this point, the Flyers were third in the Metro, like in a playoff spot. They were much better on the road than at home, whereas this year it's pretty much even, right? In terms of success on the road or at home. They had a .575 winning percentage last year at this point. Right now we're at .488, so under that 500 mark. Although, interestingly, if you recall from last season, the Flyers were starting to show cracks at this point last year. And they were 3-4-3 in their last 10 heading into game 40. Right now we're 3-6-10 or 3-6-1 in the last 10. So kind of similar in terms of, you know, the short-term success.
So what's the common denominator on that? Same coach.
Well,
plays the players the same way. Hard to keep up that type of pace and shot blocking.
Yep, that's true. That is very true. And I think, you know, in some ways, I feel better about the team this year at this point than
I think you could feel better about the future.
Yeah.
With this team, I think you could feel better about that.
Yeah, I think because, it was obviously earlier in the rebuild. Last year at this
Yes.
point, we were thinking Mitchkoff is 3 years away or 2
Right.
years away at that point. I think that, as far as, the goals this season of getting some of the younger forwards to, reach more of their potential, I think with the Cates line, we have seen that to a significant degree, especially in the last 6 weeks or so. Joel Farabee is another story, of course,
Although, because we're
but
looking back, I have a question for you.
yeah,
If there was a time machine available, do you think Danny Briere would go back and draft Jeeve William?
yeah, I
I
do.
do. I do.
I absolutely do. I think he sees that maybe Cam York and Jamie Drysdale aren't going to be what
They're plateauing
they
a little bit.
a
Well,
little bit.
York a little bit,
Yeah.
Drysdale a lot of it.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question. And it's one that I would certainly want to ask him directly, to be honest, and
Yeah,
see
but a
what
lot
he
of times
says.
GMs double down, though. You know what I mean? Like,
It's true, but it's worth asking the
sure.
question.
Yeah.
I think, and you can ask it more generally. Like, do you
Yes.
think you're more focused on drafting defensemen moving forward, given where
Right.
the Flyers are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can
That'd be the
massage
way
it
to do it. Yeah.
a little bit like that, but I think it's also interesting. Last year at this point, the Flyers had a +4 goal differential, and right now the Flyers are at -21, which is, I think a huge deal. But
It is,
that
but
being
let's put a pin in
said,
that for 1 sec. So we knew without Carter Hart to start the year and play whatever amount of games he played last year, that there was going to have to be a lot of slack made up for
yeah.
that, because Urson was a backup and he was a terrific backup. The whole dynamic changed, and as such, the goaltending is less reliable. Like, we knew that that was going to be the case this year. If anybody didn't think that was going to be the case, I think you were kidding yourself.
Right. And so I think thinking about it from that perspective, we've kind of known that this year the Flyers were going to have to score more goals.
Right,
And they didn't for a
right.
very long time. But if you look at sort of the expected goal differential stat, it was way in the negative, like all the way through, mid-November, right? And
Yeah.
then it starts creeping up. Looking at the stats on Money Puck, at 5-on-5, the expected goal differential has just continued to rise over the last 4 to 6 weeks, and we've seen that on the ice, right?
Yeah, I
It's
think
just
it's
that they're
mostly
allowing goals because of the goaltending.
right. I think that part's mostly positive, but also I think an evening out of, you had like 5 guys underperforming, you know,
Right.
Tippett, Forster, Farabee,
More
all,
earlier in the season, yeah.
yeah. And now they're sort of like, getting that back. So that was maybe going to happen anyhow, but it's happening now. So there's an increase. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, if you want to sort of transition from a team-based stat to those individuals, like you're talking about, again, you look at shooting percentage of everybody versus expected shooting percentage here. Obviously, Owen Tippett is one of those guys that, should have a higher point total at this point. We've seen him sort of become a little bit more of a playmaker in the last couple
A
weeks.
little bit.
But, as far as goals, he is well below where he should be. And it's just because of a lack of finish that,
Right.
really was hurting him for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that there's no question that's an issue. I also think, again, which we talked about last year, not having Nick Delorier in the lineup
Mhm.
definitely was going to help the whole situation. Again, unless he really was going to be like a on the ice cop for Michkov, which how could you even, like, in theory, it was so, I want to say, contrived in a way, because he was never going to be able to skate on the same line. He can't keep up with them. So then he was going to have to jump on the ice the next time whoever got him was going to get him on the ice. But then, is that really protecting him, or is it just reacting? So I think just the thought of that is why we bristled at it last year. And they're better in the sense that there's another guy who could potentially score when he's not on the ice, right? So I think that helps.
Right. And I think with Mitchkov, and looking at these individual stats, we sort of see that Mitchkov, Frost, and Lawton, who are this line that they put together, are very, very similar on that continuum of
Yeah.
being a strong finisher versus getting lucky versus being unlucky, all of those things that you put on these advanced stat grids, they are very similar. And I think that's partially why the line is starting to work a little bit. I think they have a ways to go, but I think that this sort of puts them in a similar boat to begin with.
Yeah. And two other things about Michkov. So if people are already starting to think, oh, look, Demidov looks better, he may be better. Like my thought was he might be slightly better. But again, to me, it's like, do you like Pavel Bure or do you like Alexander McGillney? Like they're both going to be tremendous players, but yes, he might be better. So, but I wouldn't get caught up in that. And I still wouldn't get caught up, even though I got a text on this. So I think it's worthy of saying, would you have taken Ryan Leonard over him? And again, they're two completely different players. It really depends what you were looking for, because Leonard is now that Brad Marchand type who's a little bigger and can, put up points. And Michkov is Michkov, and he's going to have some truculence to him, but he's mostly just offensive, and he's going to put up even more points. So, but, it's the overall thing about Leonard with the physicality that you say, it's something to think about. So I understand why people think about that, but I wouldn't have changed it if I were them.
Yeah, I agree. And there's obviously so much more to talk about with some other guys. We haven't really addressed the blue line yet. So we are going to do that and then talk about some of the stuff going on in Lehigh Valley coming up next.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets if win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. I would take the Washington Commanders over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, on tomorrow's show, we are going to recap Flyers versus Leafs round 2, and we're going to continue this halfway point discussion and look ahead to the future and talk about the goals and what we might predict or anticipate going into this second
half. Are we going to
of
use a magic 8-ball to predict, or we're going to predict?
Listen, all signs point to no. I don't know.
I like that.
But we'll also be answering your mailbag questions on the Wednesday show. So get those in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. So I think the defenseman, Russ, I think one of the things that we've noticed this year versus last year in particular is there's been less scoring from the blue line this year. And I think that's part of what has led to the deficiency in the goal differential, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. When you have less offensive push from the blue line, bringing the puck up the ice with zone entries that are clean, decisive, really good, passing, maybe just one pass, not 2 or 3, it could really boost your offense, because it really can get the other team off their game, catch them flat-footed, all those things. It's rare that happens in a Flyers game, and it's really comes down to who is bringing the puck up the ice. I know there's somebody who could do this, but I just can't think of where they're playing right now and what his name is currently. So I'll just stick onto this. But I mean, it matters. That part matters.
Yeah, I think, especially given, Drysdale being injured a little bit. And so now he's mostly back, but we still think he might be plateaued a little bit at this point. Cam York also had some issues and is a little bit plateaued, like we've talked about. And so some of those guys that they expect a little bit more dynamic play from haven't shown that to a large degree. I think Cam York has gotten up in his head a little bit because of Torts and his expectations defensively. I think there's a lot to be said for that as far as his play and his lack of output here. But I do think there's something to it. I think as we've talked about, Nick Seeler has been taking the brunt of the blocking shots, and he's banged up a little bit. Not that we expect a ton offensively from him, but I think because he has been a little bit banged up, his partner can't be as aggressive because Nick might not be able to get back on time, right?
Right. So I could tell you that, and this is probably the only time in the history of this show I'll ever quote NHL Edge, but because I'm just not a fan. But last year they were tied for 7th, the Flyers, in offensive zone time percentage, 42.3. I gotta believe it's lower than that on
Yeah.
the season, not lately. And then this other stat, make of it what you will. I still don't know what to make of it. Last year they were 5th in the most miles skated.
Yeah, true.
I mean, and I don't know what honestly what to make of that, but I'm gonna guess they're not that high this year.
Yeah, I think they're a little lower this year, but still pretty high
Right.
overall. And
Which
I think that,
unnecessarily, I'm thinking the more miles you skate, the worse it is. Like if we're
yes, because
gauging
it's
that,
wear and
yeah,
tear.
correct.
It's
That's how I read it,
absolutely
but
wear
I
and
don't know.
tear. Yeah, it's one of those things where, you look at it and it seems like harmless because you think, oh, the Flyers are, just one of those teams that are aggressive, and they're
Right,
especially some of the guys who are aggressive on the forecheck, so they're gonna
right,
skate more, right? Because they're gonna
right,
pressure in the offensive zone a
right.
little bit more. But, like, yeah, they're in the 80th percentile skating distance this year. So it's not as high, but it's still
It's still
in
pretty
the
high.
80, it's still
Yeah,
pretty high, right? So I think that is absolutely part of it. And, they don't have the offensive zone time to show for it.
right.
And
And
that's
I
part
think
of
the
it.
blue
And
line
that
is the thing
starts
that's
from
it
there.
starts all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so their zone exits were pretty weak at the beginning of the season, and without the aforementioned player who will not be named,
Yeah.
I think that has been a little bit
But I'm not going to
weaker
pin this one
as
on Brad
well.
Shaw because I think it's a personnel issue more.
Yep, 100%. I think
Yeah.
his defensive game plans have been pretty solid.
No, they're
I know.
solid. This is just the
Yeah.
part that, like you said, when a couple of guys aren't doing it and you send the wrong guy down, and yeah,
Yep.
you're gonna miss out on that.
Yeah, and then obviously, we've been talking ad nauseum on the show about the goaltending issue, and that's been a huge difference this year. And
Yeah,
so, you know, we'll talk more on tomorrow's show about looking forward and what we think they should do on that front. And
yeah,
maybe
because the whole cap next season, the cap is going to diverge with
Mhm.
everybody's contract's going to be up. That's a pro goalie for them. And what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, all good questions. So we'll get into that in part 2 of our halfway point conversation here. Transitioning over to our Lehigh Valley Phantoms portion of the show. The Phantoms lost their first game of the week to Charlotte, who are second in the Atlantic and have the highest point percentage in the division. And they had won the previous game. So splitting with Charlotte, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it.
Right.
The game kind of devolved a little bit in the third period, as you expect at the AHL level, but I think that's, water under the bridge. Like, you can move on from that. More importantly, they won the following 2 games this week. They won 4-2 against Utica, who are a bad team, and so they should win that
That's
game,
right.
and they did. And then they beat Syracuse 3-2. Now, Syracuse are kind of lower in the standings in the North Division. However,
Yeah.
they had been playing much, much better as of
Okay.
late, and had a really strong record over their previous 10. And it was a game that showed, I think, some resilience for the Phantoms, which was really important because they had been up to nothing and allowed the Crunch to tie it up with less than 30 seconds to go in the game, but won in overtime on an incredible Brendan Furry goal, who is one of the guys who's been stepping up as of late. So
Yeah, it's good. And you talked
you know,
about him last week, like, hey, it looks like he's
yep.
going to start to do that. I still have a player in decline that we need to talk about when you have that moment.
Yeah, of course. So the Phantoms have not changed place in the standings in the division, still in 5th, just because of what everybody did. Unfortunately, 2 of the 4 teams above them, including Charlotte, have games in hand. So it's going to be hard for them to move up in the standings. But I think, given everything, and when I say everything, I mean still the Anthony Richard injury and the fact that Ole Lixell went on the road trip with the Flyers and did not play, and Lixell remains the Phantoms' leading scorer at this point,
And
even
he's a
without
Phantom
playing for.
player for them, literally.
Yes, so 2 weeks without him
That's
playing.
not
So
good. That's not good. That it shows they're just scoring the minimum to win some of these games on
to some
average.
degree, on
Yeah.
average, but, given again, winning 2 out of 3, given Lixell, their top scorer, wasn't there, Richard is
Oh
out.
no, that's good.
Samu Tuamala missed 2 of the 3 games due to illness this week. He didn't even go on the road trip to upstate New York.
I don't think it matters. And I'm going to point out why.
Well, yes,
So here we
to
go.
some degree.
No, to a large degree. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many points he has this year. He's failing in so many categories. So, all right, he's a minus 17. That's an easy one. He averages 1644 according to Instat, but the problem is 301 is 314 is power play. So he's really only getting 13 minutes of 5-on-5. Then when you look at the 5-on-5, he is only getting 10% defensive zone starts. He's 21 years old. He's played overseas. Are you kidding me? He can't get at least like 25, 30% defensive zone starts. So that shows that he doesn't have that part of his game going. And it's 62% offensive
100%
zone
true.
starts. Then here's the other part of his game that has slipped. So he's got 26 minutes in penalties, which is not terrible, but he's only drawn 10. Last year, he was drawing a lot more penalties. He's not even doing that.
Yeah, I know. It's a dreadful season for Samu
is.
Tuamala. And I know it's odd to say that given that he's the second highest scorer on the team. That shows the weakness of the team overall. It has
Right.
nothing to do with him as far as output, because he only has 8 goals this season in 30
Yeah.
games. He's a negative 18.
Yeah,
Like,
negative 18 now. But he's shooting
and
3.9, averaging 3.9 shots a game. So he's shooting and he's not getting it in.
mhm. Yep. And I think it's a failure of player development in addition to a personal
Shooting coach.
Yeah. Well, a player that has been improving as of late is JR Avon, and I'm very excited to see that. We're going to talk
Yes.
about him and the rest of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms goings on coming up next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely was the case for me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for. Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in those canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year each when using all of the app's premium features, including that subscription tracker to help cancel services you no longer use. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions, reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right. So JR Avon, I am pleased to say, had another solid week here. His play had been improving, even if it didn't reflect on the board over the last couple of weeks. And this week he had a goal on Tuesday, a goal on Friday, played very well against Syracuse with 3 shots on goal and had some pretty high quality chances. And he's somebody that we have been sort of disappointed in
Right.
throughout, the season thus far. And I feel like he's finally getting somewhere here.
No, that's going to be good. I mean, he has ability. He has good speed. These are things that you hoped was going to start picking up this year, and if it's going to start picking up now, it'll be at a good time of the year because the Phantoms could use him.
Yeah, and he has been on a line with Jacob Gaucher at center, who has been a real solid center and an
Yeah.
improving center.
Yeah, he's improving.
Yeah, so much so. And Zayd Wisdom has been on a line with them sometimes. And I think that combination has really helped Avon's game moving forward. And I think that's really good to see. Now, can he keep it up? That is the question, right? And
Right,
I think,
right.
we talk about the Flyers being halfway through the season, the Phantoms are approaching that point too. And I think for him to have a good second half of the season is a really important thing for his development.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's getting there. Wisdom's interesting because if I were running the organization, I would try and sign him already for next year because I think he would be still a very valuable guy to keep in the organization,
Yeah.
especially for the AHL. But I don't know. Maybe he's going to want to play for someone like the Marlies. But I would at least try and do it before that he's going to walk away just because he doesn't have a contract. He's going to start looking around. I'd want him to be there if I could. And you might be able to get him because he's loyal and he likes it there. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see because
And
he is playing better.
He is. He's been playing better. He had 2 really good assists this week, and I think, I don't disagree. Offer him that AHL deal, of
Right.
course, like not a two-way at this
Right.
point, but to show confidence in him and say,
Yeah.
we want to keep you
And you
around.
can give him a little bump.
I think
That's
so.
fine. You don't have to always give the
Yeah.
minimum
Yeah.
because they need
Somebody
some
else,
guys that are going to be character guys that, because the older guys are getting older. Like they're, some of those
Yep.
are going to be gone soon.
like Garrett Wilson's always banged up and all of
Yes.
that. So somebody else who had a very good week is Rodrigo Abels, who I didn't realize his dad was the coach of the Latvian World Junior team.
No, I didn't notice that. I was there. I didn't even pay attention.
So while Latvia was having a successful World Juniors, Rodrigo scored a goal on Tuesday and a goal and assist on Friday. So maybe there was something in the energy.
Yeah, he's starting to
there.
pick it up. I don't know. Is
But
he a
yeah.
2-year deal or a 1-year deal? I couldn't remember.
I don't know off the top
Okay.
of my head. I'd
Because
have
he'd
to
be
look
another
it up,
guy I'd like
but
to keep around. I'd offer him a 2-way.
yeah.
I would.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I think so. And I think, again, he's somebody we'll see, can he continue
Right.
improving and becoming more of a presence on this team? Alexei Gendron had a good week, had a goal on Friday and a goal on Saturday. That was good to see.
Yeah.
He's been inconsistent. So
Yeah,
again,
he's been a little disappointing, but if he's going to pick it up, good.
yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a really interesting crossroads for this team right now. I think they are a team that has to rack up the points over the
Yes.
next several weeks. And much like in the NHL, where January is an extremely busy month with a lot of games, it's the same in the AHL.
Yeah.
This week, the Phantoms have 4 games starting tonight. At Hershey, who is leading the division. So that is
By
a
the way,
tough way.
just to ask the question, are they done cleaning up those teddy bears yet? They had over 102,000.
Oh my God, they set another record. Unbelievable.
102,000. Like that's like how many garbage cans or garbage bags full? Like is that like 100
How many
garbage bags
stores
full?
did they clean out like Hershey Park, like in
I
the
know.
chocolate factory of all their
Or
bears?
Amazon? Are they getting them from Amazon? I have questions.
I don't know. I do have questions. Yeah, Hershey is crazy with their teddy bear toss. But yeah, that's where the Phantoms start their week tonight at Hershey. And then they face Hartford in a home and home Friday and Saturday, and then are in Bridgeport on Sunday. So they have an early game this week and then 3 games in a row, which is going to be a real challenge for goaltending, I got to say. And
for goaltending, I'm pretty sure Rempe's with Hartford right now, and so you're going to have that to deal with. So there's going to be that. So it's going to be, there'll be some challenges there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a tough week ahead for the Phantoms, but I think they do, or they should have it in them. We'll see if Lixell is back with the team, and he's a little rusty. I think that
I mean, you would think since they're at home, they would send him back because what's the point of sitting in the press box in Philly? Because you could just go back in a day's notice. You don't even need a day's notice, right? So, like, just let him go back.
Right. And as of recording, we don't know if they'll put that through transaction-wise
Or
yet.
they'll at least let him practice with the AHL squad at the practice rink. At least it's something.
Yeah. All right. That will do it for today's show. Of course, we will be back tomorrow to talk Flyers versus Leafs, and then talk more Flyers at the halfway point, looking ahead this time. and answer your mailbag questions. So get those in via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology. Also the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.